How strange.
Please forget the lateness of the hour.
Something wicked this way comes.
This is the Nighttime Blues.
Spooky.
The hour is later than you think.
And now, with your permission,
Greetings, dear listener, and welcome to the Nighttime Blues, a place where we explore songs, stories, and the strange edges of the nighttime. I'm your host, Collin Marx. And there are strange things happening every day. Sister Rosetta Tharpe said it in 1945, and it still rings true. Maybe now more than ever. The world is getting weirder by the day. Why? Is anyone's guess. Perhaps it's the intense media environment we've enveloped ourselves in. Lost in the glow of the screen, the permanent hum, the gravity of the black mirrors we all carry, all shifting our reality. Terence McKenna might attribute it to the universe's preference for novelty. That exponential growth in weirdness is just the natural course of cosmic evolution. Regardless of the reason, it does seem weird these days. Although, maybe it's always been weird. Americans, at least, have been wrapped up with strange metaphysics since the country's inception. Secret societies, root work, hoodoo, folk magic, charms and talismans and prayers. The boom of spiritualism in the 19th century. Seances, mediums, spirit photography. The idea that the veil between the living and the dead might actually be thin enough to poke a finger through. The 20th century brought us the age of Aquarius, and right now in the 21st might be a whole new weird thing we don't even realize we're in the middle of. And if America has always had a strange undercurrent, then Harry Smith was one of the great conduits of it. One of these great weirdos, almost forgotten to time, yet incredibly influential on what I do today and what American music is as a whole.
I had a horse and his name was Bill, and when he ran he couldn't stand still. He ran away one day, and also I ran with him.
That's him. Harry Everett Smith was born in Portland, Oregon in 1923. Both of his parents were practicing theosophists. His grandfather was a prominent Freemason who had an extensive library, and through that lineage, Smith got an early peek into the world of obscure esoteric texts and secret symbols and occult philosophies. And as a kid, he became fascinated by the indigenous cultures and art of the Pacific Northwest. He eventually studied anthropology at the University of Washington, or at least for a few semesters, before dropping out. But even before he was officially studying it, he was recording these indigenous songs and documenting their dialects and immersing himself in ceremonial culture just by himself. He was curious. He was more like obsessive. So he drops out. He starts traveling up and down the West Coast, and somewhere in this time period, he starts collecting 78s, 78 RPM records, the big old records, not vinyl, shellac. There are these big, heavy records that spun at 78 revolutions per minute, and at that point, they were even already outdated. He's finding them in thrift stores and junkyards, and he picks them up. And so eventually, Harry settles in San Francisco. This is the beginning of what we now call beat culture, like beatniks in San Francisco. And while he's there, he becomes just enamored with the dreamlike possibilities of cinema. And he finds himself in the middle of this avant-garde film scene. And his films are very influential today. He began hand-painting the frames of his early films and creating these almost hypnotic animations that are vibrating. He's also surrounded by the early bebop scene, and he loved it. He found it fascinating, and he tried painting the bebop songs that he was hearing, almost like translating it onto a canvas. He would go and watch Dizzy Gillespie play at a club and paint what he heard as he was hearing it. And again, he starts thinking and obsessing about this idea that sound and image and shape and geometry, where it's all the same thing, that rhythm could be seen, and that like color could be heard. They're different expressions of the same material. It was this kind of work that eventually got him a Guggenheim Fellowship, which is what brought him to New York in 1951. Now in New York, he was pretty much living in squalor, just drifting between those weird hotels that were around Manhattan, including the famous Chelsea Hotel. And he just ingratiated himself into the New York avant-garde scene. He was like the token eccentric. And he really did look eccentric. He had big glasses, long white beard, frazzled hair, always carrying too many things and in a hurry and dropping them. The kind of person who's always around, showing up at parties in the corner, talking about very eccentric things, about some strange collection that he has, like paper airplanes. And Harry Smith was nothing if not a collector. He really did have over 200 paper airplanes made from scraps of paper he just found around the city. And each one carefully cataloged and curated and labeled with these detailed notes. And he just thought it was interesting, or perhaps it's fair to say that he thought it was meaningful. He also collected string figures, like these little intricate dolls that are made with loops of string. I think this is something he learned from his time studying the indigenous cultures of the Pacific Northwest. Again, this isn't like a hobby collection. This is like a symbolic language of great importance to him. It's all connected. Of course, he collected books too. In New York, he maintained a collection and studied countless texts from traditions of theosophy, Hermeticism, all kinds of alchemical documents, Kabbalah, all these different occult systems. He became a member of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, and studied under a guy named Charles Stansfield Jones, who himself was a student of the wickedest man in the world himself, Aleister Crowley. Harry Smith remained a member of the OTO for the rest of his life, interestingly enough. And of course, Harry collected records. Specifically, those old 78 shellac records. By the time Harry was living in Manhattan, he had accumulated hundreds, maybe thousands of these discs that were from the dawn of the recording industry itself. It might be helpful to zoom out here for a moment. In the 1920s, record labels began forming all over the country. It was the dawn of the recording industry, and it was still young and very chaotic and very ragtag. Paramount Records, for example, started in Wisconsin as a furniture store. And the record label arm just existed as a way to upsell the record players that the furniture store was selling as furniture. But in that process, Paramount inadvertently captured some of the most important recordings in American history. People like Ma Rainey, Tommy Johnson, Blind Lemon Jefferson, people who essentially built the DNA of blues and rock and roll before those genres even had names. And that's just one of many labels that were all across the country. But when the Great Depression came around, the industry got decimated. Most, if not all, of these labels shuttered. Catalogs just vanished, and the discs themselves were forgotten. People didn't have time to collect records or money to collect records anymore. They got stuck in warehouses or thrown away or lost to time, buried in junk shops or whatever. They became these little time capsules of an already bygone era. And it's incredible, really. This early recording era captured a version of the United States that no longer exists. A country that was less standardized, less culturally flattened. It documented a mosaic America. Regional dialects, isolated traditions, local mythologies, immigrant songs, religious visions, murder ballads, work chants, dance tunes, and spirituals. All got pressed onto these very fragile shellac discs and sold in small batches. Before mass media homogenized American culture, these recordings preserved all these different parallel Americas, living in harmony side by side, each with its own voice.
Well, there's one kind of favor I ask you. There's one kind of favor I ask you. There's one kind of favor that I'll ask you. Please see that my grave is kept clean. There's two horses in a line. There's two white horses in a line. There's two white horses round in a line, gonna take me to the burying ground. When my heart stopped beating, my hands got cold.
Now, once Harry Smith's Guggenheim money ran out, he needed to make some quick cash. He decided to try and sell some of these 78s that he had to a man named Mo Ash. Ash was the founder of Folkways Records, which is now owned by the Smithsonian. At the time, folkways specialized in folk music from all over the country. They were connected to other major figures in American ethnomusicology, people like Alan Lomax and such. But when Harry Smith approached Mo Ash about selling his record collection, Ash had a different idea. He was like, how about a box set? Ash proposed that Smith curate a multi-volume box set from his records. Folkways would pay him not only to assemble the tracks and provide the masters, but also write the liner notes and design the artwork. So Harry agreed. And it must be said, in modern terms, this was basically a bootleg. The rights were very unclear. Some of the labels were defunct, most of the labels were defunct. But Folkways went along anyway, and actually it wasn't until 1997 that all of these tracks were officially cleared to be part of the collection. And so Harry began curating. And he avoided all of the usual categories people would have used. He didn't organize the songs by race or region or even by year. Instead, he organized the set into 3 sections. The first was ballads. These are narrative songs, murder ballads, older traditions, songs that could be traced back to Europe often and beyond. The second was called social music, music for gathering, music for dances, music for community. The third volume was simply called songs. Now, Greil Marcus described this section as the songs of everyday life, songs of love, marriage, labor, prison, and death.
I just want kind of favor I ask of you. Oh, there's one kind of favor that I'd ask of you. Please see that my grave is kept clean. Oh, please see that my grave is kept clean.
Harry designed the liner notes and the cover art for this set. And this is where we start to encounter the first signs that we are dealing with much more than a mere box set. Harry was reading Plato's Republic at the time, and he took Plato's ideas about music pretty seriously. Like Plato, Smith believed that music was very powerful stuff, almost dangerous stuff. And that societies have a sort of rhythm. And if you change the music of that society, then you change the society itself. What Harry Smith was assembling wasn't just an archive or an anthology. Every bit was intentional. Every bit had a purpose. Everything was arranged exactly how it was meant to be arranged. It was itself a kind of alchemical treatise. Maybe even a cultural spell. Something like that. And if you think this is all hyperbole, just look at the cover. For the cover, he chose an image from the writings of 17th century alchemist and mystical cosmologist Robert Fludd. The image of the celestial monochord. It's like this strange diagram of something that is part instrument, part sacred geometry, showing this cosmic string being tuned by a divine hand. The idea that the universe itself is musical, that reality is vibration, that harmony isn't just something that you hear, but it's what the world is built from. And the liner notes were ahead of their time too. They anticipated this sort of postmodern typography and collage aesthetic, using cut-up ephemera and this sort of fragmented commentary. Smith described the creation process not as mere chance. He said he felt that there was a guiding hand throughout all of this work, which echoes the Dadaists and later William Burroughs, who described similarly eerie experiences with cut-up and collage processes. The sensation that randomness can become revelation. And in the end, Smith didn't just create a folk compilation. He created a 3-part treatise, a coded document of the American subconscious. A map of what Collin Marx famously called the Old Weird America. Folkways ended up selling the Anthology of American Folk Music for $25, which is over $200 in today's money. And it did not sell very well. It sold poorly, or at least a lot less than they hoped. But while it was deemed a failure at the time, the Anthology is without a doubt one of the most influential musical documents of the 20th century. Throughout the decade after its release, it slowly seeped into the American psyche. Passed around through coffee houses and college campuses and jam sessions and listening parties, wherever people congregated to talk about music. And it soon became the ur-text of the folk revival movement of the early 1960s. You know, this is where people like Joan Baez, Dave Van Ronk, and of course Bob Dylan learned not only the songs, but an entire worldview. They learned that America had this deep musical past, and that past wasn't quite dead, and it was right there, waiting to be sung. And from there, the influence just spread outward, and you could draw a line from the Anthology to the folk revival, and from the folk revival to the protest music of the era and into rock and roll. And there's this entire arc of American music that dominated the second half of the 20th century that all stems from the influence of this anthology. And so while it may have been a commercial failure, if the anthology was some kind of symbolic document, some kind of a cultural spell, as I called it, then I think it worked. It preserved a world of music that might have otherwise been lost to history. The songs of a time when America was much more of a mosaic, much more spiritually open-minded, and still very, very strange. Harry Smith continued to live in poverty for the rest of his life. He survived on the kindness of friends and strangers. He developed a bad drinking habit that would eventually take him down. But before he died, he was recognized by the Recording Academy, and he was given an honorary Grammy in 1992.
It's my pleasure to present our certificate, our Chairman's Merit Award, to Mr. Harry Smith.
Thank you. I'm glad to say that my dreams came true, that I saw America changed through music.
And in the end, that is exactly what he did. That's our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the life of Harry Smith as much as I did. And I hope you go check out the Anthology. There's some pretty good tunes on there. So, wherever you are, in the city or out in the sticks, I hope the nighttime treats you kindly. This has been Collin Marx, and you are listening to The Nighttime Blues.